Hello and welcome to the penultimate Hazelwick Yellow. I hope you're all keeping well. Why don't you say hello in the comments and we'll see who's in today. Let's have a look and see who we've got here. Adam, hi, how are you? Aditya, how are you doing? Good to see you here. Sharjeev, same again. Great to see you. Aditya's retracted a message, but we still say hello to you. Catboy, who is Gabe, good afternoon to you, sir. Katie, hi, how are you? Daisy, hello. We've got Adam for a second time. And we've got Miss Brennan. Hello, Miss Brennan. I know Miss Brennan's been suffering with a shaky internet connection, so I'm really pleased that you made it today. Erin, hi, how are you? And Emily, hello, how are you? It is great to see you all here today. We've got quite a lot to get through, but yet again, your images were amazing. But I'm so pleased you can make it on this lovely sunny day. It's gorgeous outside. I'm in danger of roasting in here. So let's jump back to the order of the day, and we're going to be looking at ISO today, which is the third element in controlling exposure. We've covered quite a lot, and I'll run through what we're going to do today in this episode, in this live stream. So, language fact, as usual, to kick off with. Then we'll look at your photos. Fewer photos this week, but it was all the excitement of the competition. I completely understand that. So relatively few photos. A lightning quiz, slightly extended. A competition update to let you know what's going to be happening with your competition photos. We'll have a look at Masterpiece, slightly different this week because we're going to look at homes that we would like to own. It's just a chance to look at some rather nice real estate. And the reason I'm using real estate rather than saying housing is because it's an American photographer we're looking at, but we'll get to that anyway. Then we've got our lightning quiz again, and we're going to look a quick recap on aperture and shutter speed to make sure that you know how everything works, and then we'll dip into ISO and then finish off with the assignment for the week. So that's the grand plan, guys. I'm going to try not to go on for 50 minutes like last time, but let's see how that goes, because that's what I always say. So the language fact, the word of the week is composite. It's a word that's used regularly in photography. It's from the Latin componere, which means to put together or to collect a whole from several parts, or made up of distinct parts or elements. In photography, composite's quite an important area, because it's all about combining multiple images into one. Now, an example, I actually made a composite image yesterday when we had some family round, all socially distancing and being very sensible, but I ended up taking a photo of 5 people. And when you take pictures of groups, there is inevitably always someone who's either got their eyes closed, or they're pulling a face like a horror film, or they're looking in the wrong direction, or if it's my son, they're trying to strangle someone. So you need from all of these images to try to get one good image. So what you typically do in Photoshop is you find your 2 best images, and you'll find one image where nearly all the faces are perfect, and you'll find a second image which has got that one or two faces that are right, and then you will actually merge the two. So you'll get rid of one face in one picture and just draw through the other from beneath it in layers. And Photoshop's all about layers, these sorts of image manipulation packages. So composite, quite a big deal, quite a useful concept to understand in photography. All right, so we are jumping into your amazing photos. We have Daisy with this lovely fountain. I love the crop you've done here, Daisy. I think that works incredibly well. I think it looks very, very good. Sir, I've got a hole in my chest. Have I? Ooh, must be the green screen then. Yeah, have I got must have a green. I actually changed my t-shirt because it looked so shabby, because I generally don't iron things. So if I've got a hole in my chest, don't worry, I am healthy and all is well. It is the green screen, and I can show you another example of the green screen. Actually, you'll find this quite funny. Just bear with me a second. Miss Brennan has seen this before. This is the way that I do Zoom meetings with people, just to show how very serious I am. So and I've got Chewy back there, who's obviously making sure that everything is okay. All right, so we've got Daisy with this lovely fountain. I think that is a really, really cracking shot. Let's go on to the next one. And we've got Lisette. Now, Lisette, I love this image because I recognised this building and couldn't figure out why. And it's because I think we were both there at the same time for the French trip, weren't we? This is the Tour Montparnasse, which is the biggest. It is the biggest tower in Paris, I think. We went to the top of it and we sunbathed up there for a bit, about 30 of us, and then we came back. fought over the chairs briefly and then came back. It was great fun. I'm going to get to this photo a bit later on because I'm going to show you a way in which you can photograph tall things like this without them looking as if they're falling away from you, a way that pros do it. And it ties in with the work we're doing with this real estate photographer, the architectural photographer, later on. So that's Lizette. Shajiv. Now, Shajiv is the king of the shot this week. He's got more than anyone. So, and there are several with this sort of theme. I think I've got most of them in there. I think I may have ditched one of them or so. But Shajiv, lovely image of the flowers. I love this. Lovely and sharp. Lovely vibrant colours as ever. I think this is my pick of the crop. I don't know what flower it is, but it's very pretty. And I think that is a beautiful, deep, vibrant red. This one, again, the fact you've got the green in there, just by way of contrast, I think it works exceptionally well. What a great picture that is. We have Daisy with this great shot, and I love the way that our eyes are being led through the water into the far recesses of the frame, and somehow those shadows help even more to funnel, to sort of move your eyes along the picture. Lots going on there, lots of variety, lots of greens, and I love the fact you've got that texture at the very front as well. What a great shot that is. Shajiv again. I do like this. You've not turned the vibrance up on this one like you do with all the rest of them, which I thought was an interesting choice. But I love the pink in the middle of that flower. Are your mum or dad really into their flowers? Because you seem to have these at home, so you're very lucky to be around all these beautiful flowers. Having such terrible hay fever, I would not want to be anywhere near them. These blossoms were beautiful. You did well to capture this. I think most of the blossoms are on their way out now. Again, really lovely. And the fact you've got that wall in the background and the windows, give it context and just add to the whole image and give it a bit more depth. So I thought that was very good. Erin, I loved this. Your basketball, you captured that in midair with a high shutter speed, no doubt, against those puffy clouds, the cotton wool clouds. I think it looks really good. I was looking at this photo for too long because I imagined that I was seeing a map of England. Then I thought, no, I just need to move on and look at something else. Ria, I love this. Would you mind in the comments telling me what it is that we're looking at? I didn't have time to Google glass spectrum, but I'm trying to figure out, is that a hand holding something that I'm looking at? Or, I don't know. And that's a wall, and there's some amazing patterns and shapes and so on, but I can't quite figure out what it is. So, Ria, if you're here, let me know. Okay, let's move on. We've got Samantha, lovely sailing boat. I think this is a beautifully composed image. The clouds in the water, the slight ripples in the water that break it up slightly and give it that sort of, I suppose, mosaic effect, almost like something from the surrealist era paintings. Really beautiful, absolutely love it. What a great shot. And you've put the horizon in just the right place, which is not an easy thing to do when you're looking at that much sky. So I think you did that really, really well. And I think also, talking about patterns and shapes and the clouds obviously went to the edge of the frame, but you can imagine this vista going on forever, and that works really, really well. Looks like a hand holding something with water. Okay. Okay. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. I thought that was quite intriguing. I think this was the same one, Shajiv. Maybe this was my pick, actually. I love this. Other than the fact I'd love to have those green leaves down below, but I think it's beautifully sharp, rich, vibrant colours. Again, great shot. And we've gone for oranges this time, and I like the way you've got that nice bouquet, and we all know what bouquet means, going away into the distance, the converging lines, having the wall there really helps as well. Great colours, beautiful bit of orange and green. Very nice indeed. So we have done exceptionally well. I think the time is now to move on to the quiz time. So let's get on with that. I can't find my blinking song. I've lost it. Ooh, that's very upsetting. Instead, I'm going to press a random button. Sorry if that scared you, but that really is time for quiz time. So I'm going to ask these questions, and then let's see how you do. Quiz time. Quiz time. Quiz time. Quiz time. I've rearranged the buttons on my soundboard, so now I can't find anything, which is fairly typical. Just speak to Miss Brennan. I can also see that I've developed a green fringe on my face. So don't worry, I'm not turning green. I've not become an alien. It's just the green screen. So let's go on to the first question in our quiz, and it is, what is this called? What is this called? And let's see what you've got for me. Stone the Crows, he got in fast there. Okay, let's get rid of that. That was Aditya, who was straight in there with the right answer, which is very, very impressive. So let's that is for you. It is the camera obscura. What a good man you are. That was a very quick answer there. It is indeed the camera obscura. So let's just go back to having a look at this. It is the camera obscura. And I thought some of you wags might start talking about some ancient torture device, but no, it is the camera obscura. Anyone in the comments remember what camera obscura actually means? It's not going to carry any prizes, that question. I'm just curious. Okay, so that is Aditya, who is one up in the quiz. Let's move on to the next question, which is, who is this? Who is this? Surely you'll get this exceptionally quickly. Flipped image? No, not quite. So who was that chap I showed you? The one that I go on about all the time. Well, it was Gabe who got in there really, really quickly with Ansel Adams. I think you were the first one. Adam came in very quickly second. Yeah, I'm slightly obsessed with Ansel Adams. I just love his landscapes. I really, 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 really do. I think he's a great photographer. So, yes, Ansel Adams. And also, a lot of directors and photographers believe they're changing the world with their work, and very few are. But Ansel Adams actually did change the world with his photos. It's because of him that there are national parks in the USA. So his photos actually had that massive effect. Okay, so that was the next one. Let's go back to our main quiz and have a look at the next question. It was Ansel Adams. Who shot this image? Who shot this image? Answers in the comments, please. It wasn't Cartier-Bresson, Adam, but I appreciate the speed with which you got to that. Give you a clue, he was the guy from last week. Remember about making models move, about having fun, about models not standing still and looking miserable, as they always do. Yeah, it was the same guy who did Marilyn Monroe. I don't expect you to remember his name, to be fair, but it was him. Right, let's get rid of that and go back. So the correct answer for that one was Richard Avedon. He was a very famous fashion photographer. It's not really my sort of photography, but you can look at his images and you can see that they're his, because he did bring something new to the whole genre. So he was the guy who did Marilyn Monroe, and we also had Eve Arnold, who also took Marilyn Monroe shots. A lot of people did, but she's probably the one who managed to get Marilyn at her most relaxed. And we looked at Avedon last week. He had done Bob Dylan, do you remember? He did Twiggy as well. Katie pulled out the answer for Twiggy. So that was Richard Avedon. Right, next one. A lens with a variable focal length is known as a what lens? I'm not even going to move because I know you'll get this one really, really quickly. It's known as a what? Nope, not a macro. Macro is the one for photographing small things, the ratio of 1:1, Adam, but I like where you're going. It's the one that probably you use the most. Camera? No, it never was primal. It was prime, by the way, Gabe, but I like where you're going with that. You've got into the caveman thing, the primal lens. Wide, the lens you hit somebody with, possibly wide. No, I'll give you a clue. It begins with a Z, and it's the one that you can twist and you can go in and go out of images with. That's the worst sentence ever constructed. Any ideas? Ooh, we have an answer. It is indeed a zoom lens. So let's give... who is that man? That is... Was it Aditya? No, it was Shajiv. You get the choir because people were struggling with that so much. If you don't like choirs, you can just have the ding. So well done, Shajiv. It is indeed a zoom lens. We've looked at different types, haven't we? Macro, and we've looked at zoom. and we've looked at wide. It's a zoom lens. So people often talk about zooming in on a subject, don't they? So there's your zoom lens. This one. Oh, now I did ask you this one before, and what's the nice way of saying that you completely messed it up? You totally messed it up. So what do you think this is? Now I have highlighted the area that I'm looking at. This has got a bit of a long name, begins with a C, and it's when you get colours in places that you shouldn't have colours. It's known as colour fringing, and you end up with sort of weird fuzzy colours on the outline of shapes. Can anybody remember what this is called? I wonder. Let's go and see what we can see here. I might even set the timer. No, I'm not sure you'll get this. Begins with CH. CH, anyone? CH? Mm-hmm. Oh, blimey, Shajiv, you are a hero. That's chromatic aberration. Absolutely fantastic. I am super impressed because that is not the easiest thing to remember, but that's what it's known as. Chromatic aberration is when you get that weird colour fringing, often purple, not always purple, but often purple on the outside of your solid shapes. Yeah, just like that. And it's just caused by light shining in the wrong place in your image, and it's not a good look. Chromatic aberration. What a good man you are, Shajiv. Oh, right, so that's the end of the first part of the quiz. I wanted to update you on the competition, if I may, and it works as follows. These are not all the images that we're going to submit for final reckoning, but these are some of them. I simply couldn't fit any more on the page. So if yours isn't there, if yours images aren't there, don't worry. Also, I can see that the voting system was not exactly perfect. And while I could see your votes, it didn't quite work as intended. So we'll improve that for next time. However, I did know who voted for which people, which enabled me to then put the images forward. So here's what happens next. I am sending the head teacher and the two deputy heads, so that's Ms. Fearon, Mr. Chalmers and Mr. Leadbitter. I'm sending them a PowerPoint. I told them 10 images. It's going to be more like 20 by the time that I finish doing it, but hopefully they'll have forgotten what I said. And I've asked them to pick to pick a winner and then to pick two runners up. And they can go for first, second and third place, or they can go for a winner and two runners up. It's entirely up to them. And they're going to let me know before next week's Hazelwick Yellow, so we can announce the winner at the last one next week before we all go on holiday. So that's quite exciting, isn't it? And I thought the images you put forward were brilliant. I thought the ones you didn't put forward, I was quite surprised because some of your favourite images you didn't put forward. But listen, that's the beauty of photography. It's the beauty of art is that it's about what you feel. But there were some wonderful, wonderful images there, and I know that they are going to have a very traumatic time trying to work out a winner and a couple of runners up from there. It's going to cause them some pain, but that's fine. If they suffer pain, no problem, and they'll let us know next week. So, Masterpiece, this is the next thing on the agenda. Masterpiece. Now, I know that I was talking with Miss Brennan about moving house recently, so I found some potential properties for you, Miss Brennan, which I think you will quite like. This guy called Mike Kelly, I came across him through one of the various photography YouTube channels that I watch. I watch a channel called Frono's Photo, and it's a very sort of loudmouth American guy, but I find him quite entertaining. And he's a professional photographer, and he had taken some pictures of his house to give to the estate agent, or the realtor, as they call it in the States, because they talk about real estate, and the realtor is the estate agent. And he had taken his photos, and then he asked a friend of his, who's a full-time professional architectural photographer, that's all he does, he asked him to critique his photos. And I went and looked at this guy's website, and it was like something out of a James Bond movie set, some of the pictures. So I thought we'd have a look at him. He's not famous, he's not particularly well known unless you're in the trade now, but he's a guy called Mike Kelly. He's based in Los Angeles in California. Architecture photography is his thing. He learned to shoot on a Kodak box brownie. How many times have we heard that story? Quite a few. He studied art and environmental science, And then, like so many of us, having studied one thing at university, went off and did something completely different with his life. And from that, I think he'd actually planned on being a snowboarder. But after breaking many, many bones, he decided that perhaps it wasn't the most sensible of careers to try to follow. And he finds architectural photography to be a perfect mix of being a technical challenge and also a creative outlet. And that's what I love about photography too, is the fact that it mixes a bit of knowledge with that creativity as well. And he founded an architectural photography almanac, which is a magazine about architectural photography. So without any further ado, I just thought we should look at this picture because I want to live there. I think it's rather nice. I think it's beautifully framed. I mean, you could argue that it's quite difficult to film a place like this badly. However, that would do me. I would be very happy there. And I love the way that, see, there's people standing on the balcony, the way that is hanging off there. There's probably a name for it, which I don't know. My dad was an architect, but I've got no idea what it's called. But it's a beautiful, and just look at the shapes. It's such a beautiful, beautiful building. And this is someone's home in California. I'd be equally happy here. This would do me. Everything covered in wood from top to bottom, wood and glass. Isn't it just beautiful? Very modern, obviously. Not a bad kitchen you can see there, slightly larger than mine by quite a long way. You can see the sort of dining room on the left-hand side. Sorry, this is just really an opportunity to gawp at rich people's homes, but I thought this was... Isn't that Ellen's house? Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. Ooh, I don't know. I don't follow celebrities at all, so I have no idea. But it could well be Ellen's house. It's an overhang. Is that what it's officially called, Erin? An overhang. Okay, that completely makes sense. But that is just beautiful, isn't it? What a lovely place. And of course, while we're admiring the house, also these photos were taken for the purpose of selling the house. So he's been given this job and he'll go in for a day. And he was saying that his typical workflow he would go into a place like this, and he might get 8 or 10 images over the course of a day. So it's a really sort of painstaking job doing this. I think Ellen DeGeneres, she is a TV personality. She is the voice of the forgetful fish in Finding Nemo. What's the forgetful fish called? Just Keep Swimming. That fish. And she's a show host as well. But she was a comedian first as well. She's done all sorts of things. Yeah, so there's that one. Anyway, and we get this one. I don't know whether it's the same home or not. Dory. Yes, and then there was another film called Finding Dory afterwards, wasn't there? We digress. Well, look at this. I mean... Sometimes I wish I hadn't chosen to be a teacher, you know. There we go. Look at that. That's just an astonishing place. Of course, where we live, that kind of outside living space would just be wet and cold the entire time. But hey, that is some building, isn't it? What a lovely place. One more. This is my favourite of all. I think this is absolutely astonishing. I don't know what the rectangular... construction is that we're staring straight out, that sort of thing poking out there, but that looks like it's a kind of, I don't know, it's nice, isn't it? Reflections in the water, look at the tree there. Oh, it's so nice, isn't it? Now there's something, I don't know whether you've noticed about these photographs, but all of these photographs, they are true, as in the lines are... Yeah, I think you would get lost in that house, Katie, wouldn't you? But it'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? It's all that glass. It's just so beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway. Let's now here we go. This is the last image of his that I'm showing you, and I'm wondering if you look at this picture and you think, oh, if I took that picture with my phone, it wouldn't look like that. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? As in, if you took that photo, what would be different about it? I mean, obviously it would be in Crawley perhaps, and it wouldn't be a building that looks like this. I'm not talking about that, but in terms of overall the way the building appears, is there anything that strikes you as being a bit different to what you might get if you took this picture? So they're going to issue you with a map. I suppose you get a map when you buy a house. You get a floor plan, which is much the same thing, I guess. So let's move on, because I wanted to just dig in a little bit here and have a look at this. It's a great photo, but fundamentally he's taken a picture of a building. It's not that outstanding. Did he take it further up so it doesn't lean away? Oh, Gabe, that is exactly the answer I was looking for. I'm going to give you a sound. I think we should give you
Yes, you can!
and you did. There we go. A wonderful sound for you. Exactly. Because normally if you take a photo, it's leaning away. And the most logical answer is that he got on a cherry picker and managed to get halfway up the building and took it. But that's not how he did it. That's not how he did it at all. So this, which Gabe has just figured out earlier, the aspect ratio or the sharpness, it's not that. It goes back to, it's got that shiny. Has it got a shiny bit? What's the shiny bit? Let's have a look. The shiny bit. Oh, the reflection up there, top left. Yes, okay, I hadn't seen that. No, that's not what I was pointing out. It's the fact that if you or I took a photo, it would look like this photo on the right-hand side. As Gabe mentioned, it would look like it's leaning away. And that's one of the quirks of the cameras that we have. Whereas he took that picture standing on the ground, and yet it doesn't look like it's leaning away. In other words, the straight lines are straight. So what's interesting is that there is a difference, and the reason for that difference is actually next to me there. And it's not a strange medical instrument for reading people's thoughts. It is a different type of lens. Can anyone see that lens? I'll just move slightly out of the way. Can anyone see that lens down there and tell me what seems slightly odd about it? Any ideas? Apart from the sort of bowl thing on the end, which makes it's quite a wide lens, this one. But that's not what I'm talking about, not the end of it. Yeah, its curves. Yes, you're right. Its curves are the thing, actually. Its curves are the thing. That is very, very true. But in fact, what that lens is a tilt-shift lens. Now, I think you get a better view of it from this angle. Can you see how, and I'll try and point, oh, I can't point behind it because that's behind me. Can you see where it says Nikon PC Nikon 19mm? It's a 19mm lens 1.4, so it's blinking expensive because it's 1.4. So it's a very advanced lens. It can shoot in very low light. But can you see where you've got that T, and then you've got the T stands for tilt and the S stands for shift. And the lens can actually move up and down and side to side. All right, it's called a tilt-shift lens, which again you've got to be careful how you say, a tilt-shift lens, which means it tilts up and down, and it shifts from side to side. But it will still be in the same place in relation to the sensor. So what's quite interesting here is that you can change the orientation of the lens compared to the sensor. Okay, because obviously the sensor is flat. You can adjust it. So usually the lens and the sensor are parallel on the same plane. They're fixed like they are with all the lenses that we use. But the ability to tilt or shift a lens makes you able to produce certain effects. And you'll recognize some of these. One of these was really trendy a year or two ago, and they were in every advert. Because what happens is that the advertisers sort of discover or rediscover one photographic effect, and then it gets used to death for the next, I don't know, for the next sort of year or so, and it appears in everything from house insurance to selling cars. So this is called the Scheimpflug principle, and I don't know what that means. I should have found out, really. Flug might be something to do with flight, but I can't remember. If anyone's got time to Google Scheimpflug and see what it means in German, I don't know. So you can use it to change the scale of focus and the depth of field. So typically this is used for correcting vertical converging lines. In other words, this image that we look back at here, it's for correcting that. So it makes straight lines absolutely straight. It's also great for panoramic shots, and it's also great for blurring select sections. But the one that you will have come across, because it was so trendy just recently, and you'll find there are also presets on your phones for doing this. It's the miniature effect. All right. So when you look at filters, you often have a miniature filter on your phone now. So this is actually achieved using a tilt-shift lens, so that you can tilt and shift the focus away. So it means that you can decide what is blurry in the picture. and it means that you can take this image, which is of like a town, looks like it's in Germany somewhere, and you can actually oh, hang on, Katie, let's get you in here. What's Katie saying? It's the principle of the geometric rule. Ooh, okay, so I'm guessing that we're slightly messing with geometry, which is what we're doing by moving the lens compared to the sensor. And of course the sensor is flat, the sensor is immovable, and when you focus things it's just in one sort of on one plane like that. But by having the lens here you can move the whole focus up and down and side to side. All right, let's go back to here. So that's the miniature effect. And just in case you hadn't figured it out, this is what I'm looking at. Look at that. I'm having my brain probed by this thing now. But you can see left-hand side, the picture that you or I might take with our camera or with our phone. On the right-hand side, the same picture taken with a TiltShift lens. So it keeps the straight line straight, as opposed to it feeling, as Gabe said, like it's falling away from us, okay? So that is exactly what we're on with the TiltShift lens. Another example here, the panoramic shots. That can be achieved really well with a TiltShift lens, especially in this case because it keeps the straight lines absolutely straight. So that is some interesting stuff there about a TiltShift lens. We've covered quite a few lenses, haven't we? But and that's the sort of last main type that we need to look at. There's super zooms and so on, but actually we've talked about all the lenses that any professional photographer could use. So we come to our second version of
Quiz time.
and I get a slurp of coffee, which is great. Let's go on to our first question. Now, we went through this last week, ladies and gentlemen. What sort of lens took this image? What sort of lens took this image? That is the correct answer. It is indeed a fisheye lens. Let me give you some appropriate... ooh, you can have a... It is the right answer, and the right answer... Let's just zip back to here. Here we go. A fisheye lens. It was Shaji. If you're going with fisheye straight away. You've got a wide-angle lens, which can go to about 10, 12 mil, which is very wide. And then you've got the fisheye lens, which gives you that sort of 360-degree shot like that. Fisheye lens. A speciality lens, and a lens that sometimes you buy and then realise that's all it can do. It's very exotic, it's a great look, but it's also quite limiting and limited in what it can do. But it is a fisheye lens. Okay, a bit of a maths question here. And we're talking about f-stops. Remember we covered f-stops last week? How much more or less light does each f-stop let in as the f numbers decrease? This reminds me of a maths question where it'll ask you a coach. Ooh, half. So we're going from but is it half? Is it half? So each f-stop, as the f numbers decrease. So if you went from f5.6 to f2.8, would half be the right answer? He says. I wonder. I've not had a chance to press this. I'm going to make up for... Oh, good. Gabe got it right, but still. I thought I'd really enjoy that. It was. And you know what? It's that confusing thing that the f-stops, as the f-stops get bigger, it lets in less light. As the f-stops get smaller, it lets in more light. It's the wrong way around, isn't it? To my way of thinking. But that's what it should be. It lets in twice as much light. As each stop, as the number gets smaller, it lets in more. As the number gets bigger, it lets in less light. And you get a greater depth of field. I know it's a lot to take on. And all of this stuff, you will have somewhere in the back of your mind. Incidentally, if you're ever using a proper camera where you can set shutter speed and aperture, and it's a sunny day, set the aperture to f8 and work from there. f8, sunny day, start from there and work your way through, okay? That's always a good starting point. Okay, 3 ways to control exposure. 3 ways to control exposure. Can we think what they are? Answers in the comments, please. Gabe has almost got it right apart from one letter, which is a shame. Oh, and then he got it right. That is good. He got it right. Wait for my hum. By the way, does anyone know what the main tune of that countdown is? I doubt you would know, but it's something that I used to hear quite a lot when I was your age. So that was Gabe who got it absolutely right. It is shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. Those are the three things. Those are the three things we've talked about, aren't they? And if you've got an understanding of what they do, you're a long way towards understanding photography, really. So that's a really good shout. Shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. And the fact that it's a balancing act between these three, okay? Because the exposure's got to be correct, and if you increase one, then you've got to adjust the other to let in more or less light, okay? A faster shutter speed, and you're going to need to let more light in with ISO or more light in with aperture. So it's that balancing act, and at the same time, that creativity of thinking, what do I want to achieve? Do I want the background to be blurred? Do I need to freeze the action? Just whatever it is you're doing, and depending upon the amount of light you've got to play with too. So it's all there to be played with. We describe light as having three things. What are those three things? Answers in the comments, please. Answers in the comments, please. Direction, colour and strength is almost there. It's not strength though. It is quality. It is quality indeed. That was the Pearl and Dean music, and every time we went to the cinema when I was a kid, they would play that. That meant the film was about to start, so it's very exciting, and I still like it today. It's absolutely that. So let's get back to this. Well done. That was a really good effort there, Gabe. Colour, direction, and quality. Brilliant. Right, last question for the quiz. Last question coming up now, and it is: light, which is the opposite of harsh, is described as, and it's not soft. What is the opposite of? It is soft, but that's not the word I'm looking for. So this is also an episode in reading my mind. So light, which is the opposite of harsh, is described as, and let's get this up so I can see it, although I'm slightly behind you. Any answers for that one? No, not weak. No, not weak. Not even weak 3 times. I'll press the wrong button 3 times though, because it really makes me feel good. Begins with a D. Bright begins with a B. Begins with a D for dog, for dummy, for doodle, for danger. Dim. It's good. That's a good answer, actually, to be fair. But it's wrong. Diffuse. That's the word that we looked at before, isn't it? They talked about light being diffused. So let's go to here. It's diffused. And light can be diffused if you're in a studio. You can use a softbox. If you're outside, the clouds will diffuse your light, or you can use a screen to actually throw some shadow on your subject in the burning sun where it's too hot, where you'll get only harsh shadows, which are not nice to look at. So diffuse is the last thing there. And that pretty much brings us to the end of quiz time. Which takes us on to the next thing. Now, this is a fairly technical bit, but I'm going to whiz through the first part. I'm sure you understood this last time round, but I thought it'd be worth doing a bit of a quick recap on shutter speed and aperture before getting into ISO, which is the last of our triumvirate of ways in which you can control exposure with your camera. And I know Katie will ask, because she asked a very sensible question last week, which is, can you actually control this independently on your phone? The answer is no, it'll work it out for you. But the reason I want to show you about ISO is it'll let you understand why you're getting certain results from your photos. So we've talked about these three elements being the ways that you can actually control your exposure. A quick question for you. I need to zoom out of the way slightly. Over here, you can see, let me get my microphone, you can see we've got three different pictures of water photographed, working from left to right. Which of them is at 1,000th of a second, which is at 1/25th of a second, and which is at 1/125th of a second? I need to go and lie down for saying that. So, in other words, is it ABC, is it CAB, is it BCA, going from left to right? Any ideas on that? I'll get out of the way, because me having my fat head in the way doesn't help. There we go. 1,000th, 1/25th, or 1/125th. The irony here is, in my classroom, I always am in the way of the board, so at least I'm being consistent here. So anyone got any, we've got CBA, we've got, I need to remember what the answer is myself, first of all. Let's have a quick look. CBA, no, it's not CBA. BCA, it is BCA. Who got BCA first? Let's have a look. Let me have a quick look and see who got BCA right. Let's have a look. BCA, who was the first BCA? It was Katie. Woo! Let's give you a...
Yes, you can!
Well done. Yes, you can. You can even have a special voice. There we go. Not that I've got a new toy at all. Did that come through, by the way, that voice? That took an awful lot of planning, but I'm sure it didn't actually even work. So BCA is exactly the right answer. Let's go to here. BCA is what we were looking for. BCA. It's logical, isn't it? Because there is more blur in the first one and it's slower. So therefore that's 1/25th of a second. The second one, there's less blur, but there's less blur still in the final one, which was at a faster shutter speed. Water is a great fun thing to shoot because you can make it look like something from the Lord of the Rings, that sort of misty kind of mystery, anything beginning with M look, or sort of almost like a sort of creamy kind of dry ice effect you can get with the water. A bit like if you shoot it even slower than in B, and then you've got the ability to capture the water in mid-flow or in mid-splash, as Rachel did a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember her picture of the crown of the water or something she called it? But it was a great shot of capturing a drop of liquid. So that was the answer there. Right, I don't want to spend ages on this because this isn't a science lesson, but this is what we've covered so far. Aperture. So those aperture rings sit in the inner recesses of your lens. When it's wide open at f2, it lets in lots of light, but you don't get much of a depth of field. Your subject will be sharp, the rest of your image will be quite blurry. And as you move from f2 through to f16, and that's where it's annoying because the hole gets smaller as the number gets bigger, which is not very helpful. When you get to f16, less light's being let in, but your depth of field massively grows. And if you remember, that was the series of images that I showed you last week. I'm going to whiz through 4 of those again, just to recap on it. But just so you know, each stop lets in either twice as much or half as much light. All right, so that's how that works. And this was it, f2.8, and you couldn't make out what was in the background. We moved to f5.6, and it's slightly clearer. Look at the cars behind. We get to f8, and you can just about make out it's a car. You go to f11, and it's more clear still. And you go to f16, and you can make things out. So that is the effect of depth of field, all right? And at each time, you're stopping down, so you're making the aperture hole, even smaller, all right? So that's the aperture. And that was quite a quick recap on that. So we're now going to move on and talk about ISO. Shutter speed we've looked at, aperture we've looked at, ISO is the last one. I would like to take you back in time when people used film. And can you see on the films in front of you, those film canisters that you put in your camera, it's got numbers like 400, 3200. Those numbers relate to the ISO of the film. And that related to how sensitive the film was to light. So, for example, if you went out shooting on a sunny day, you would need a film that wasn't that sensitive to light because there was so much light out there. But if you were shooting in dark circumstances or at night, you might go for, can you see the 3200 there? And that would be a high ISO film. As you increase ISO, and of course that's now moved on to digital cameras, and in a digital camera the ISO is increased by simply turning up the power to the sensor. So you're simply giving the sensor more voltage. That's what you're doing. But the difficulty is, by doing it, you also add in graininess, you add artifacts to your images, and it gives it a kind of grainy, sort of slightly mucky effect. And sometimes it works really well. When you're shooting at night, it can work really well because it sort of adds to the whole ambiance of your picture. But equally, it's something that you need to recognise what it is, and therefore you can decide whether you want it and when you want to add it. Right, so my little demonstration here on ISO is this. Now, I've taken this from a website which is called DP Review, and they review all the latest cameras. And each camera that they get, each new camera that they get, they photograph this particular image. So they've got this in their studio somewhere, and they photograph it. Now, the bit of the image you're looking at is the part in the red rectangle. Now, that's writing. It's two sets of text, one on a white background, one on a sort of greyish background, and it's photographed from this far away. So they then zoom in up until this point, and at ISO 100, and that part that says 100, it's a JPEG image. This happened to be shot with my camera, which is just because I was mucking around with it, but that's irrelevant. So here's the setup. You're looking at that very tiny bit of that image, and this is at ISO 100. And we're going to watch what happens to this text as the ISO gets increased. Now, at this level of ISO, you can just about make out. I don't know whether you can read it back at home, but I can read north, south, east, top left here, no sun nor other, and law of nature, and then kind of hard to read then. But this is ISO 100. Look at the effect on the text as you increase the ISO. So here's 100. Here's 200. Let's move up to 400. You can see that it's become slightly grainier, okay? And that's one of the signs of high ISO. 800, bit more. 1600, subtle but definitely deterioration, definitely more grain, definitely slightly harder to read. A big step up to ISO 3200. Now anything below the first 4 or 5 lines you can't really make out at all. So let's push it again. Notice how these ISO values are doubling each time. ISO 6400, and kind of, again, the first 4 lines maybe. We push on. Once you get to 12,800, and by the way, in film terms, you could not shoot at 12,800. About 3,500 was about 3,006 is about as far as you could go. But digital cameras now have the ability to resolve at ridiculously high ISOs. But you can see that the artifacts are creeping in. And when I say artifacts, can you see halfway down the left-hand side, there's almost like a halo effect, like there's a, like these words have been cut out of a newspaper and stuck on there. That's what we talk about when we talk about artifacts, that additional elements are being added to the image. Let's go to 25,600. And now we're kind of down to the first 3 lines that we can read. It's looking very grainy. Then we go to 51,200, and well, I can make out north and south, top left-ish, but that's pretty much all I can read. And then we go to the final ISO setting, or is there one more? I can't remember. 102,400, which is useless because you can't make out anything. You can just about say that it was some text, maybe. And there is one more. 204,800, crazy ISO setting, but you can see the effect. So what's happening each time is the amount of power or current being given to the sensor is being stepped up each time. But there comes a point where actually you don't end up with a very good photo. All right, so that's what ISO does for you. And I guess I just want to finish. It's still taken me 50 minutes to get this far. It's shocking. I'm so sorry, guys. This is what you're looking at, and after all the work that we've done, we've kind of come to this point that you now understand exposure. So you've got aperture, and it's like this seesaw, this balancing act, that you've got these three variables that you can alter in order to get the right exposure. You've got your shutter speed, you've got aperture, and you've got the sensitivity range. So that's the ISO sensitivity. And each of them has their own particular effect on the image. All right, so that's the balancing act. But you guys have done so well. I know that you probably understood most of that, but that's what we've covered so far this term. And that brings us to here. So actually 50 minutes on the dot. Just take an image. And then next week I was going to set a task, but I thought it might be nice because it seems as though maybe, fingers crossed, touch wood, we are coming out of this lockdown that's been going on forever. And we're kind of hoping that we're all going to be back in September and getting on with it, because I think it's been going on for far too long. What about taking an image that sums up how you feel about the lockdown, about moving out of lockdown, about going back and seeing your friends and doing normal things and still socially distancing, but living a slightly more normal life? Or if not, just upload a great photo that you've taken. All right? So that would be a really nice thing to do. Let me have a quick look at your comments, because I can't read them. I put them on a different screen today, so I can't really read very much. Yeah, it's like when they print out school resources. And it's interesting. It's kind of exactly the same principle that when it's school resources, you often get teachers taking copies of copies of copies of copies of copies. And it's about resolution, isn't it? It's about the quality of what you're trying to get hold of. But the next time that you look at an image, you should be able to pinpoint the extent to which, how high the ISO is. You should be able to look at it and go, oh, aperture would be around about here. And look at shutter speed and identify with blur or without blur and how the image has been captured, which of those three methods they've used for controlling exposure. Oh, well, that was quite technical this week, so well done for sticking with it for that long. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. There's only one more to go, which will feel quite sad. Oh, you're right. I can see I have got a hole in my chest. I haven't been shot. It's a green thingy on my chest here. Where is it there? Yeah, that's green screen for you. So we will meet again next week, and it's been a massive pleasure. Get some photos in. We'll give out the prizes for the. Well, we won't give out the prizes. We will announce the winners and the runners up next week, and the prizes will wing their way to you. It'll be some kind of photographic book of some kind, the sort that we've given out before. The head teacher and Mr. Ledbetter and Mr. Chalmers are really looking forward to doing it. And then I was talking to Mr. Ledbetter about this. About a few of you had asked about carrying on with this next year. And yes, I'm happy to, but I'm not quite sure what form it would take. But I think that we could keep some of this together. It might be slightly shorter sessions, and it would probably need to be in the evening after I get home from school and when you guys have had your tea, that sort of time, around about 6:30, something like that, perhaps. Okay? So have a fabulous week, and I will, I'll see you next Monday, at which point we're going to have hardly any time left, which will be very sad. So I'll bid you a fond farewell, and I'll see you in a week's time, guys. Bye-bye. No, next week should be fun. I have asked the head teacher and Mr. Ledbetter and Mr. Chalmers to give us some commentary on the images as they are going through them. All right, guys. Bye-bye. Have an amazing week, and I will see you. I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.